I just came back from hiking at my favorite trail along the river. It was beautiful and made me think about how it's small, simple, and not really making a difference.
Well, not to be rude, the reality of streams and rivers is much more complicated than that. They're extremely diverse and important to animals and people throughout the world, not just Florida.
Welcome back to the Wild Waters Podcast. Today's episode is about rivers. I'm Alyssa.
I'm Juan.
I'm Raquel.
And I'm Renato.
Florida rivers are better known as a vacation activity rather than for their ecological importance. A place sought after by locals and tourists for its relaxing nature, enjoyable environment and atmosphere, and the species diversity. Because of how diverse the Florida rivers are and the way they're distributed, it's like no two are the same. Most people think that a river is just a stream of water that flows down a current, but there's a little bit more to it.
Then what exactly are rivers?
Rivers are veins of flowing fresh water on the surface of the planet that move over the landscape, drain into channels, and erode the crust. They shape and define the topography, being responsible for the reason Florida beaches have their unique soil. Our unique soil is due to the movement of sediment and nutrients produced by the rivers as they flow down their current. All this is possible because Florida rivers create a web-like network that spans across the state. According to the National Wild and Scenic System, Florida has approximately 2,600 miles of rivers that humans have used ever since Native Americans first used them in pre-settlement Florida. They were used as a way to travel between villages and tribes, as well as for irrigation and hydration purposes. Goes to show that rivers have had an important impact on humans ever since the start of society. This vast area of rivers is mainly classified based on its geology into 4 prevalent types based on water quality, flow, clarity, temperature, and other environmental characteristics that may help distinguish them. Rivers are generally classified as black water, white water, spring-fed, or stream. Most rivers are a mix of these 4 types where they transition and switch between each other along their path to create the rivers we see today. It's like I said earlier, no two are the same. While the rivers themselves are not too diverse, they are home to diverse plant and animal species. The flora and fauna are dependent on the location and water type, since both are major factors in how an ecosystem develops. Because of the large area rivers cover, the flora and fauna found there are very diverse, although they have to deal with a couple big problems: invasive species and pollution. They pose a big risk as they endanger the integrity of the ecosystem and, in many cases, those around it. Most of the species found are not invasive though, with a very few being easily recognizable. Some animals that almost everyone might recognize and are commonly found in an ecosystem are the Florida manatee and the bald eagle.
Florida rivers are truly remarkable with their ability to sustain an amazing diversity of plant and animal species. They provide recreation and habitats for several species, including river otters, alligators, and a variety of freshwater fish and birds. Backtracking to what Juan said, eagles and manatees are a part of the beautiful wildlife found on Florida rivers. According to Dr. Gerard F. Pinto, a research associate at the Marine Science Research Institute at Jacksonville University, nesting and roosting occurs on the top of the highest trees found mainly on the edges of St. Johns River. Bodies of open water provide food resources like fish for bald eagles. Manatees are observed quite frequently in Florida rivers where they feed, rest, and mate. American alligators? Scary, right? But they are one of the most iconic species a part of Florida rivers and contribute significantly to Florida's tourism, hunting, and farming economies. They play an important ecological role in aquatic ecosystems through predation and ecosystem engineering. River otters is another species you will see in Florida rivers and are found throughout the state except the Keys. River otters, although cute and small, are not afraid of a challenge and have been known to eat young alligators. There's a crazy amount of fish in Florida rivers, some species that are even endemic to specific streams of rivers. From a diverse variety of bass, sunfish, bluegill, shiners, and darters, these are common fish populations you will find in Florida rivers. The Apalachicola River actually supports the greatest number of freshwater fish species in Florida, and the Apalachicola ecosystem supports the highest diversity of amphibians and reptiles in North America. Also, before we move on, I wanted to shine light on the alligator snapping turtle. Fun fact is that they're only found in rivers and streams that flow into the Gulf of Mexico. And let's not forget that females can weigh up to 220 pounds. I want to briefly mention some plant species that are listed by the state of Florida as threatened. Corkwood is a rare species that is monitored during their time of bloom in early spring. It is heavily harvested, with its wood having the lightest density wood of any plant in the state. The Swanee River Management District provides habitats for numerous plant species, including several rare and imperiled biota, including angelpod, Adamasco lily, and blue butterwort.
Rivers have to face challenges from natural disturbances, from erosion and climate change. These disturbances alter the landscape and the balance of the ecosystem. Water is a powerful force that shapes our world. It meanders and creates beautiful, diverse habitats. Water picks up small sediments and minerals that come into contact with it, moving them from place to place. This erosion of the soil and the rock creates the complex landscapes that we see today. The river water cuts through the land at a path of least resistance to the water. This path can change over a long period of time, however. If a bend in the river erodes more easily than another, this can change the path of the river water flowing, leaving behind a section of the river that is no longer included in the flow. This is called an oxbow lake. These oxbow lakes hold the potential for a buildup in sediment, animals, and plants, which creates a different, unique ecosystem altogether. Some rivers have strong plants along the bank with their roots holding the soil in place to help lessen the erosion damage from the powerful water. This alteration of the land over time is natural and creates beautiful scenery with diverse plants and animals to live in and by the rivers. Climate change is also a natural disturbance for rivers, affecting the amount of rainfall that is inputted into the system, which can lead to more intense flooding and larger floodplain areas around the riverbank. The floodplain area is the area of land around a river that is subject to periodic flooding, which can change the hydroperiod of ecosystems surrounding the river. The hydroperiod is how long water stays in an area, which can lead to major changes in what species can survive in that area. Climate change is also affecting the sea level. The higher it gets, the more seawater is backing up into the river system, leading to more brackish water and disturbing the species that rely on the freshwater ecosystem.
Like all other ecosystems around the world, rivers aren't immune to the disturbing effects we humans have on the natural world. While we can sometimes improve the conditions of certain species and ecological systems, the overall effect of our species' impact is overall quite negative. General pollution is probably the worst human disturbance faced by river ecosystems because it leads to the pollution of not only the rivers and streams themselves, but the lakes, ponds, and beaches that they may feed to. It is estimated that around 2,500 acres of estuaries in Florida are heavily polluted. These ecosystems are fed by hundreds of miles of interconnected river systems which flow through urbanized areas, picking up pollution along the way. Urban pollution like this has been known to decrease water pH, which is directly linked to a decrease in biodiversity. Florida also happens to have the highest number of polluted lakes in the United States, most water fed through polluted rivers and streams, as well as stormwater runoff. Stormwater is especially harmful because it flows over impervious surfaces like driveways, sidewalks, and streets, picking up harmful pollutants and chemicals along the way. This wastewater reaches local streams and rivers, which find their way into lakes and, eventually, into the ocean. This wastewater is especially hard to control because it does not have a single point source and is basically scattered bycatch pollution. This is known as non-point source pollution and is the primary cause of watershed pollution in Florida. On top of pollution, humans also tend to disturb the natural flow of many river systems. Through land development, draining, filling, and building, natural river system functions are altered and disrupt wildlife patterns. Flow disruptions like these are associated with decreased biodiversity as plants, fish, and invertebrates are reliant on river flows to bring them food downstream. Flow modifications have also led to temperature shifts within river systems, which especially disrupt the development of fish and invertebrate species. Exotic species are another human disturbance. Non-natives are often introduced into rivers and streams for the purposes of fishing, adding diversity, or simply pet releases. This human disturbance is rarely a very impactful one, but when a breeding pair of the wrong species is introduced into an interconnected water system, it can eventually have serious consequences on the surrounding wildlife and environment. Examples of invasive fish species in Florida rivers are the bullseye snakehead, the blue tilapia, and giant armored catfish, the latter being especially bad as they heavily erode a natural manatee habitat. can do to help?
You can start simple and easy by participating in Florida-friendly landscaping. This includes reducing or eliminating landscaping water use.
You can also reduce the amount of fertilizer used on lawns and/or use the correct fertilizers for your lawn. The improper use leads to eutrophication and chemical imbalance of the rivers.
Try to prevent storm runoff pollution. Don't blow your leaves and grass clippings onto the street.
It goes down the storm drain and potentially to the river.
It can also cause blockage and reduce the water flow of springs and rivers.
You can volunteer for a stream and river cleanup or a wetland restoration event. Leave no trace. When visiting Florida rivers, try and minimize disruptions by
Maintaining the balance of natural areas,
Respecting the river regulations,
And pick up after yourself when visiting our natural rivers.
Thank you guys for tuning into the Wild Waters podcast. Hope you all learned a little something about rivers and now see them more for what they are. An intricate, delicate ecosystem full of amazing life that deserves our respect and admiration.